listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, May 25th, year of our Lord 2017, and you're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. We got a lot of interesting things going on in the world, but really all we're trying to get you to do is just open your eyes. There's more going on than who's on The Bachelor, who wins Survivor,
me,
or who's on the next Big Brother. I was waiting for you to say me again.
Big Brother, no.
I could totally
Dancing with the Stars?
I could totally
No.
see you on Big Brother.
Possibly.
Just go out there. The information is out there. Find it. We're just trying to stimulate intelligent debate here. And the thing is, don't take our word as gospel unless we're actually reading from the gospel. We're just dudes and ladies sometimes.
Dudettes.
Dudes and dudettes talking about stuff that makes us crazy. Not that we're literally crazy, but it just, that remains to be seen. But seriously, go out and do your own research. If you find something that we're quoting incorrectly or talking about that we're not right on, then hey, give us a call. Let us know. Hit us up on Facebook. Send us an email. But really, we're just trying to get you to do your own research because there are no more secrets, just ignorance.
How's it going, Howard?
It's going okay. How you doing, Hope?
Good. I'm fired up today.
Fired up. What are you fired up about?
A lot of stuff. Some of it's personal. Some of it is related to what we talk about. The research I've been doing on this book has me angry at the world, like at the stupidity of humanity.
That's what it took?
No, I mean, I've been there before, but I'm really... this has been a pretty powerful and long-lasting wave. But I totally understand why Bill Cooper on his show, when he was doing the Hour of the Time, and he was broadcasting daily. I mean, he did 1,900 shows. We just did our 76th, by the way.
Wow.
So what is that, 1,824 more to go?
More to go, yeah, before they come kill us.
Yeah, no, they'll...
What are you, tin hat?
Well, that's what they did to Bill Cooper.
They killed him.
Yeah, they killed him.
Without a doubt.
Because
He was a bank robber.
Because
dude.
he's dead. So that's
He was a bank robber.
No, he was shot 9 times
yeah.
in the back.
I mean, even if he was a bank robber, they still killed him. That's not an inaccurate statement.
But he was not a bank robber.
No, I don't believe that either.
He
I
was
don't
not
think
a
so
terrorist, like the sheet of paper that was given to the Arizona Marshal Service said he was.
Yeah.
He was just a guy, had a radio show. In fact, that same marshal, when he started to dig into Bill Cooper, realized, oh my God, we killed a patriot, literally.
He came out later. Didn't that marshal come out later and say that they made a mistake?
Well, he was running his own investigation because the house wasn't wired like his intel report said.
Right.
He started finding out who's this guy, because it's a traumatic thing to kill another human being. You usually, unless you're a heartless bastard, you usually try and reconcile this in some way. And he starts finding out who was this guy.
It made it worse.
And he started to realize, wait a minute, the guy that was presented to us on this intel report is not at all anywhere near what the evidence is, the truth is about this Bill Cooper guy that's now dead. He starts looking into it. A few months after the Bill Cooper incident, he's on a parade on a motorcycle going through Arizona, and literally a black van runs him over and keeps driving. And that's not an accident. Like, they were trying to shut him up too. So I don't know if he lived or died. I run into these stories ad nauseum, and it's...
You know, I actually tried to investigate that after we had a conversation one time. Can't find anything about it. It's... When you try to find certain information, I'm finding it doesn't exist, or it's buried so far you don't know where to look for it.
I've learned a whole new aspect of research. In fact, I'll give you an example. There was a quote attributed to a guy named Louis T. Moore, Moore. that basically he was a guy that was pro-evolution, and this guy's quote is all over the internet, and saying that the paleontological record does not at all support the theory of evolution. Now, the guy's an evolutionist, and they said he was a Princeton professor, and he said this. There was no date, actually. So I started looking all over the place. I cannot find anything on this guy. To make a very long story short, the guy was not a Princeton professor. He was the dean of physics of the University of Cincinnati. His last name...
That's close.
It's close, right?
Yeah.
His last name is spelled More, just one O, not two. He did say the quote, and it was in a series of lectures he did at Princeton, where his brother was a professor. Ended up finding photographs of the guy, and he wrote a series of books. One of them, The Limitations of Science, was one of them. His name is Professor Lewis Trenchard Moore, long since dead. Now, this is we need men like this. Now, I'm saying this. He absolutely believed in the theory of evolution, which might seem odd for me to say we need guys like this, because the books that he wrote basically had a very common theme. And I'll share with you a quote that's going to be in the book from him. But his quote, his observation was this, and this was in 1925. He said, all right, this theory of evolution came about just 60 years ago, and it is, yes, I believe it. And I'm paraphrasing Professor Moore here. He's like, yes, I believe it. However, it's a little disconcerting to me that all of this is built on theories and theories on top of theories, and the evidence doesn't really support it. And I just happen to believe the theory of evolution, but I have to admit to myself, that's what I believe. I'm putting my faith in that. But it's not a fact by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, he even mentioned something about how, this is odd that I love finding these things, because I think I'd mentioned on this show before that the theory of evolution, almost in this coordinated fashion, goes global in a matter of, all at the exact same time. And you got the Huxleys doing their thing. You've got Darwin doing his thing. The media all throws it down, and within literally a decade, it's as if, oh, this is the truth. But this is how, because we were going to talk about deception today. This is one of the things this is how you see deception originate, germinate, and how it turns into something. And he was always very careful to point out that, the theory of evolution is very broad. It discusses a lot of things. It talks about the variation, changes in creatures that adapt to their environment. Now, that has been proven scientifically, and I do believe that that is a real thing. But it has no answer for the origin of life. How we go from inorganic to organic is a leap of faith. It's never been... There are theories about it, but again, it's just a theory. And it's funny, because here's a guy that is, in essence, on the other side of this debate now. And I've now been on both sides. I spent the first 40 years just being a diehard evolutionist versus a creationist. But really what I came to realize is that it was propaganda, and now we understand how our education system was co-opted, and we're basically fed lies. And even to this day, if you're a professor and you try to bring up an opposing viewpoint like this, you lose your job. So let's not be fooled about how the university system is this bastion of free thinking and ideas. It's not. It's just the highest level of brainwashing available. Yep. And the beauty of the brainwashing, I mean, you get a degree from Harvard. I mean, whoa, man, clear the room for this guy. I mean, yeah, he's smart. But they're self-deceived is the problem. And he at least had the foresight to say, yeah, I believe evolution, but I'm not, there's still a lot of room here that this could go either way. Now, that was in 1925 when he said this. And since then, science has actually completely disproven that idea. If you look at archaeology, biology, genetics, paleontology, and the advances we've had even since 1925, and he's already noting these problems in 1925, the theory's been essentially wiped out completely. Completely. They didn't know about DNA back then, or that it essentially was a 15 billion line computer code. The fossils that, we walk into a museum, like the Smithsonian with a nice old sun logo telling you where their allegiance is. Yes, these things are true. They will have constructed some big mammal or some missing link type of creature, some Neanderthal on a display based on a sliver of a bone as big as my thumb.
Yeah, that's the plastic monkey men that they worship.
And it got me. I was pissed off. I mean, right now I'm in the middle of being pissed off at a lot of stuff, but seeing how, number one, someone somewhere along the way got lazy and misspelled his name and said he went to Princeton. So then what happens is all these websites, all these Christian websites, all these other researchers, these people that are supposed to be doing what a free press is supposed to do, which is actually research, they just copy and paste, and the mistake just metastasizes, completely blows up.
Yeah, isn't that kind of science? Isn't that how science works?
It's funny, but in finding out the misinformation about Dr. Moore himself, I discovered that his work was based on that very thing, that our knowledge of the world is based on a house of cards of information, which he at least observed as... Here, someone say something, because I'm going to look up this.
He observed it as an honest scientist, so instead of some kind of zealot, right?
Yeah, but that was 1925. They have stepped up their game since then with the indoctrination and the brainwashing in the school system.
Yeah, I mean, you still have honest scientists, but they're not on TV.
No,
they're not teaching
I'm talking,
in universities.
But they've got Bill Nye.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's
and
right.
Richard
Forgot.
Dawkins.
Oh,
that's right.
they're
They're
not
not
scientists.
But they're on
Yeah.
television, so they
But they're
must be.
honest. Oh, wait.
And they got a
no.
bullhorn, so
Yeah, that's right.
he who argues the loudest.
Yeah.
Okay, so here was the original quote. So I'm going to read you, at the end of the day, I'm going to read you two quotes, and then I'm going to share with you two passages that
Why
are
don't
going
you
to
just
be
read
in the
them now?
book.
Yeah, why wait till the end of the day?
Yeah.
Did I say end of the day?
Yeah.
I'm about to do it right now.
Oh, okay. So not at the end. Okay.
I was
I'm
confused.
telling you what I'm going to do.
Is the day over already?
I was
Then I'm
wondering.
going to do it.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to tell you what I did.
So, ahora. Say it.
So the quote that got this firestorm with Dr. Lewis T. Moore started was one totally misattributed, and it becomes all these people that copy and paste and don't do their own homework. And then they put it in books that they publish.
Was Facebook around back then?
It's now this juicy target waiting to be discovered for the purpose of discrediting somebody. So this was the original quote. The more one studies paleontology, the more certain one becomes that evolution is based on faith alone. Exactly the same sort of faith which it is necessary to have when one encounters the great mysteries of religion. Okay? Powerful quote coming from a scientist, evolutionist. These are some of the quotes that are in this book. So, but that quote by itself, it doesn't say everything that's involved. So here was the passage that, now this one just got written this morning. My eyes have not evolved, so I can't see this bloody computer screen. Okay, so here's the quote, or very close to what you'll find in the book when it comes out. Professor Lewis T. Moore, Dean of the Graduate School, University of Cincinnati, from 1916 to 1940, was the featured lecturer at the Princeton Venexum Lectures of 1925. The 6 lectures became the foundational chapters of his book, The Dogma of Evolution, from which the above statement was cited. I consider these strong words from a distinguished believer in the theory of evolution. Unlike the propagandists of the day, like T.H. Huxley, and we're going to get back to T.H. Huxley in a minute. Unlike the propagandists of the day, like T.H. Huxley, Dr. Moore was able to concede that the theory was and is based on faith. That has not changed since 1925. In fact, with modern scientific discoveries in biology and genetics, it requires much more faith to believe in Darwin's Origin of Species than the Bible's creation account. As a former believer in the entirety of Darwin's evolution theory, I cannot state this more emphatically. It's a complicated theory, and some portions are certainly scientifically verified, such as species adapting to their local environments. But after 6 years of research into the science of evolution, the theory as a whole, and the etymology of the field, that is, the history and the development of the theory, including biology, archaeology, paleontology, and genetics, my opinion is that evolution theory is one of Satan's greatest scams of all time. It took me 40 years to figure out the scam, but I thank God I did. It's nothing more than a propaganda maneuver, albeit one with utterly devastating consequences to your soul. Personally, I don't believe you can know, in quotes, the real God and believe in the theory of evolution simultaneously, and I got to put a closing on that particular entry. While researching for him and the origin of that quote and literally reading 50 pages of his evolution, the Dogma of Evolution book today, it's one of the reasons my book's taken so long. I came across just a bunch of nuggets, and here was another one. So I added a quote of his to the existing 401 book, and it came out of the same book, The Dogma of Evolution. He writes, in spite of this totally inadequate foundation which paleontology offers for a scientific theory of evolution and the causes of variation, that is variation among the species, there has never been known such a campaign of organized propaganda in the name of science as took place in the latter half of the last century. So this coordinated propaganda campaign, which we've touched on here before, which is the same MO we see with 9/11. Say you get out in front of the story, you hit from all sides, and anyone that has a counter thought to this new prevailing opinion is ridiculed out of a room, and next thing you know, you literally have changed the belief system of an entire society. Very possibly, and I'm still not going to disclose exactly where I stand on the shape of the Earth, but very possibly it was the same method, the MO used on that 500 years ago with Copernicus and Galileo. So the comment on this particular quote in the book, and they're going to be in two separate chapters. Although Dr. Moore was a believer in the evolution theory, he was careful to point out that the science it was based on was littered with flaws that continued to be carried forward as facts. In fact, he also wrote a book called The Limitations of Science, which was an observation of how the general public adopts scientific theories as fact routinely. I would consider him a true man of science in that he was well aware of the unscientific way in which Darwin's theory spread, with little testing and verification. He was also careful to distinguish between different parts of the theory which were, at the time, and are more than ever today, grouped under one simple umbrella. The theory of evolution can explain how species adapt and change based on their environment, but it never could explain how life originated from inorganic matter, and it cannot explain how one species morphs into another. Modern archaeology, paleontology, biology, and genetics have completely debunked the vast majority of the evolution theory, except the portion which discusses variation within a species, sometimes referred to as microevolution. Unfortunately, the same propaganda system that launched the theory in a coordinated fashion, as Dr. Moore observed, is still at work today. I don't believe this to be accidental. I believe this to be the purposeful ongoing output of modern-day workers of iniquity under the direction of the evil one himself. These are entries that are going to be much later in the book by the time you realize, okay, this was what the book's about, is discovering, holy cow, organized ancient biblical evil is very real, or coincidentally, it absolutely mirrors what the Bible said in a way that was absolutely predicted by the Bible. So here you've got two books now, and literally our belief system really originates from two books, and this is for almost any person in the world. It either comes from Darwin's on, what was the name of his book? On the Origin of Species, or it comes from the Bible. We either evolved because of random accidents, or we were created by a god. Now, unless you are a research fanatic, one of these books you're going to have to take on faith. All right? Through propaganda, I would say now, would you say most of the world, at least the United States, believes in evolution over creation?
Wow.
I think, losing my voice, I think a lot of people in growing numbers believe the Earth was seeded by aliens.
Well, you
That's
still
the
have
ancient
you still
aliens,
have the
so-
question of, well, where did the aliens come from? Were they created by a god, or
Well,
did they evolve?
We just ignore that, So I don't know which book that falls under.
I mean, but it still comes from God made us, or
Not.
we're a random accident.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
If you were going to say, if you wanted that answer, the popular answer that you would put on TV, it would be evolution.
Yeah. In school, and that's what you're
Right.
going to hear.
You're not
No,
going to go on
there's
TV
such a
and
lot-
say aliens. You're not going to go on TV and say the Bible. You're going to say evolution, because
Right.
if you don't, just like
well,
you said,
because it's science, Tony.
Well, the alien
exactly.
the alien departure is just a subheading of either or. The alien, remove the alien, it's irrelevant. If aliens exist, did they evolve, or
right.
now we talk about what we think aliens really are, and they're not little green men from another planet. They're just the very demons from the Bible doing the very massive deception that was predicted in the Bible. So at the end of the day, you've got these two books.
I don't know. Now I think about that more. I would think that actually a higher number of people deep down believe in creation.
Tony, do it. See if you can. There's going to be a
Just 'cause-
Barna
just out of
or
sheer-
Nielsen. Someone.
Well,
Just out of sheer numbers.
I don't
mean,
disagree with that, but I say if you're going to get on TV and say it,
Well, yeah, but I mean,
You know,
as a
it
if you were to
takes-
do a survey,
it takes nuts to get on TV and say evolution's bull, and
right?
you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, even you look at all the major religions of the world.
No, but I'm just curious to find out
Who are we looking up?
percentage of the population that believes in evolution versus creation. I'm going to guess that it's close to 70, 30, 80, 20 in towards evolution. That's just
Really?
that's my gut feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
even Christians, diehard Christians, will believe in evolution, and it's
well, you have
natural,
this thing called theistic evolution.
right? Which God
God made everything
very
evolve,
possibly. I cannot rule that out.
Sure, yeah.
that is very possible.
except for that the Bible doesn't explain it that way. So
It does not explain it that way, but possibly the Adam and Eve creation story is a metaphorical story. But there's no way that the human body with its symbiotic systems, that is, like the eye, which needs something like 9 different moving parts to simultaneously come together in order to operate, that cannot happen in a gradual evolutionary mutational way, which is what the theory is. It can't, because you need 8 things to come together at the exact same time for it to work. And the symbiosis is all over nature.
yeah,
And it's the chicken and egg situation, basically.
According to Gallup, 42% believe the creationist view of human origins. So that would mean
60-40 roughly.
yeah.
Okay. That's neither
Yeah,
here.
all right. I
What's
mean,
the interesting?
interesting.
Well, what's interesting? Let me read this so I don't misspeak here.
It depends to what audience. If they're talking
You're
to
talking
Christians.
I'm sorry, that was in 14. In 2017, it says 62% of Americans believe that humans have evolved over time. So the numbers are going down.
So it went from 38%.
It went from 42% to 34% in just 3 years.
Huh, interesting.
So 20 years from now, no one's going to believe it.
But if you were to take that same poll, say in, depending where you were to, if you did that in Georgia,
if you take it at a Baptist convention,
Yeah,
you're going
right.
to get like
Yeah,
90%.
if you stand there and poll people on their way into the Ark exhibit.
yeah, if you do that in,
What were you gonna say, Tony?
San Francisco, you probably get most people would
Well, I was
say
going to say
evolution.
this is typical, depending on where you read it. Huffington Post, okay, so you know where that's going.
Yeah.
While 99.9% of scientists accept evolution,
See, now that's
lie.
That's totally wrong.
that is a
Alternative fact.
that's a lie out of the pit of hell.
It
But I'll
is.
bet you the writer's not lying. He believes it himself
Right, he's
because
just wrong.
that is the company line that
Sure.
we keep hearing everywhere. But where are all these scientists? Because all the scientists I look up,
No, that guy made
they
that-
don't
the-
think that.
The writer
actually.
made that number up. Just made it up. That's like a. It's not meant to be an actual stat. It's like
Right.
when you say 99.9%.
euphemism,
Sure,
right.
like totally. He just made that up. 100% of scientists do not believe in evolution, so they don't actually. 100% of scientists don't agree on anything.
No, I've come
so you're saying that's
across.
fake news?
It's a lie. Yeah,
That's
that's
Oh,
a lie.
so
That's not fake news. That's a lie.
Yeah, it's just a lie.
you guys have a alternative news. That's what you guys have.
Yeah, well, the alternative fact is we have no idea what the percentage of scientists is that believe in evolution. That's an insane thing to even say or claim. You'd have to talk to every scientist on the planet, log it out, you know what I mean?
You
And then
could
next
you
week,
could sample 1,000 scientists, and he's saying if you did that, you'd get 999.
0.9.
Well,
You get 9/10.
if you get
of some other
1,000
person.
scientists, it would be 999 scientists or
Right.
like us. But I'll tell you, because I'm just reading them all, I've probably come across that many, and it's closer to 50-50.
Yeah.
And the movement's always in one direction. They grow up, especially any scientist that's alive today, grew up believing in evolution, and something happens along the way where they suddenly believe in creation. It never happens the other way, where a creationist was raised in some religious family, and then all of a sudden, late in life, the light hit him and he became an evolutionist. The movement's, it's like 9/11 truth. People that believe in the conspiracy of 9/11 don't suddenly one day wake up and start saying, "Oh, it was the government story that is actually true." The movement is always in one direction, and it's always moving towards the truth. And the anecdotal story of all the scientists I've come across, and I don't know how many it is. Realistically, it's probably 200, to be honest with you. And I'd say it, just off the top of my head, it was about 50-50. But almost all of them started off evolutionists. Almost all of them did.
Well, we all do, because that's what we're taught in school, unless your parents take care of that at home.
Right.
Right? We all start out as evolutionists by design, because they teach it in school.
And then you negotiate with, like, from the day that I realized, and I'll remember this day forever, which is November 22nd, 2011. I've been researching 9/11 now for 9 months. Was way beyond 9/11. I'd been following the financiers of 9/11, which turned out to be the central banks, which we talk a lot about here. Started to realize, hearing all this stuff, they're praising Lucifer, finding actual evidence of it, person after person coming out and saying the devil's real, blah, blah. And it still was over my head. I was just like, well, they're crazy, they're crazy. But the day it finally hit me, I started to negotiate, because it sounded like all your beliefs tumble in some big Jenga tower. You're like, okay, so, all right, I know God is real and Satan's real, so I'm guessing Jesus is real, and how does evolution work? And maybe God maybe he just sort of guided the evolution of humanity, and that's how that. So then you start, eventually I got to looking into evolution, and I realized, that theory is based on a joke. I mean, it's a sham. Then you further find out that Darwin himself was a 33rd degree Freemason, and across several English-speaking continents, I can at least speak for them, you've got the T.H. Huxley brothers and a few other families that all of a sudden just start promoting this theory but doing it not in a scientific way, doing it in a propagandist way. Like, if you don't believe this, you're an idiot kind of way, which tells me, ooh, they're compromised. And then you start to actually look into the theory, which means reading Darwin's book, and there is so much supposition in there. And he even himself says, the archaeology's just getting going. We are going to find... It's not that we're looking for one missing link, okay?
There's millions.
Millions of missing links. He's like, we are going to find fossil evidence of literally millions of creatures between an ape and modern-day human. Because for every mutation, we, in a sense, have a new species or subspecies, and we should find... This record should be everywhere. Now, National Geographic and Smithsonian and these compromised institutions, that, yes, they, behind the scene, I'm not saying the worker that's cleaning shelves at the Smithsonian, he doesn't know what's going on, but the administrator at the top of a museum or the head of National Geographic or maybe the boss of the head of National Geographic, because, again, they're owned by one of 6 companies, because all media is owned by one of 6 companies at the end of the day. It is a propaganda campaign, and I was going somewhere with that specifically, but I remember growing up as a kid, I used to read National Geographic, The Search for the Missing Link, as if we're looking for one, and then they find some ape named Lucy.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then they say, we've discovered it, but wrong.
Well, the only thing that any of those skeletons proved is that a monkey died in Africa.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't
it doesn't prove anything. That's all it means. So what? You dug up
we
some
actually
monkey bones.
should see skeletal fossil remains of every imaginable aberration between the humans we are today and the simple cell creatures where all this started.
But not just people. We should find these for every species of animal that we see now.
We actually should find...
they didn't evolve, though, right?
Yeah, they did.
I'm confused.
Well, you should
everything
be, 'cause it's nonsense.
everything evolved
Well, you think you're confused.
People
from
just
a
didn't know.
primordial soup.
Yeah.
We should find things that are half banana, half human.
Something.
And it's an unending list of possibilities.
Yeah.
All beginning with what Darwin called a simple cell.
Right, because, birds came from dinosaurs, right?
Right.
No, not right.
No?
No.
I'm confused.
Birds have always been just birds.
What about dinosaurs?
Dinosaurs were dinosaurs.
You know
now,
what?
you will get this counter argument. Whoa, you can take a certain type of dog and mate it with another dog and get like a...
That's different.
That's variation within a species.
Yeah,
now, that's been proven.
That's speciation.
That's called microevolution. Speciation. Thank you.
We have it with people.
But you cannot get a dog to turn into a tree or a tree into a dog or a dog into an ape. You can't.
No, you can't even get a dog and a cat.
They say this theory is based on observation. Then we should, as Darwin said, we will observe all of these different mutations in it. The archaeological record should be replete.
Yeah, it's not.
But we haven't even found one.
Not one.
He's expecting us to find millions. We haven't found one.
Right.
But they kind of gave that credit to this little ape called Lucy. But it still doesn't solve the problem.
No.
You need...
Lucy.
Yeah. It's laughable. And they'll give these things blue eyes, change the skin tone, and they just make it up. It's just made up. It's just made up.
If there was any link at all that they found, you would know about it because
it would be the poster child.
That's right.
Dawkins would have it tattooed on a full back piece of it.
Yeah.
It's not like something
that
they
would be
hide
the period to their sentence.
Yeah, but they claim though
we'd be clobbered with it.
That Lucy is the
So how does this work? Because we're talking about deception. All right, now we understand
this how this works. Part of it is they go digging, they find these bones, they want to connect to Lucy, right? Well, nope, it's just another one of these giant things. We better hide this in the corner.
Well, that's another thing. This very museums, on one hand, they're taking evidence that absolutely debunks evolution, like the skeletal remains of these giants. Now, those get hidden in some Raiders of the Lost Ark hangar in some box that we'll never see. And you got hundreds of archaeologists saying, yeah, the minute I found this, I knew this was earth-shattering. I called up usually the Smithsonian or the Field Museum or whatever is the body in their area. And it's the same story every time. All of a sudden, the military is there. They cordon off the area. They get rid. All researchers gone. They take all the evidence for processing because this is very important. The archaeologist thinks he's on the verge of one of the greatest finds in the history of man. And they all have the same story. And next thing you know, the Smithsonian lost your evidence. Yeah. That's the story over and over and over and over and over and over. Now, yeah, maybe 100 plus archaeologists are all doing this as a hoax. Or maybe these museums that are supposed to teach us things really are part of the cover-up. And how hard is that? You get some kid out of school that's good at making models, and he's just given a job. Hey, I want you to create this little display behind a window, and let's have some Neanderthalic-looking men, people foraging for food. So when people come through the museum, that they'll see it.
Right.
And even the person giving him the orders doesn't have to be crooked. But somewhere along the way, what I found, I mean, this is the most common denominator. Somewhere along the way, there was a guy that was in a secret society and not knowing any better, and just, they joined to rub elbows with the movers and the shakers and the bankers and the wealthy guys, and they swear this loyalty to their Masonic temple, and somewhere along the way someone says, hey, your membership is about to pay off. We'd like to appoint you to the head of the XYZ museum. Now, this guy still doesn't know the greater plan. He's still a dumb cog in a wheel, but he's like, shit, yeah, that sounds great to me. Hey, this membership's already paying off. And the message then gets to him, we're going to remove evidence of these bones. I know you want to portray it, but don't ask why, just get rid of it. In fact, let's do the opposite. Let's put up some displays that show different levels of human evolution, so all the people that walk through see this in their head. And that little dynamic, that little mechanism I just explained, happens concurrently all over the world in a coordinated fashion, most of it coming through these secret societies, because these guys have sold their soul. They don't know the big picture. They don't know they're working for Satan. They don't. But that's, all of a sudden, all you need is one or two guys at the top, and you can sway the world.
Yeah, well, the Lucy thing is of a special interest because it's the newest, right, addition to the this evolutionary picture they keep making up and adding to. What they do is they find like a couple of bones, right, and then they date it. So then they have some 3.8 million years for sure. Like,
now, why don't you tell us how they date, where the dating comes from? Because this is the most circular. But
well, I mean, it's to really simplify that. It's like, well, how do you know the fossil's old? Well, because it's in a rock. And how do you know the rock's old? Because it has a fossil in it.
Well, there's
it just around.
Geological time scale, which is based on this tree that somehow stood upright for 100 million years, somehow, and had layers of sediment. Okay,
right.
And now, no tree is going to stand upright slowly, living as sediment just keeps forming around it. That's so
certainly not millions of years.
This would have happened in flash, like a flood,
a flood,
exactly. Another thing that's, and so they found. That fossil was found in level 7 of this geologic timeline. So we know the fossil's 3.8 million years old. Well, how do you know how old that level of the ground is on the geologic timeline? Well, the fossil in the ground we found it in tells us.
Right.
It's completely circular reasoning based on...
Well, it gets worse because then they'll take this skeleton that they found and they'll put hair on it. I guess they just guess what color it is. And then they put skin on it, and they just guess what color that is and what the face looks like, what color the eyes are, whatever. And they put a spear in its hand and give it a nasty, smirk on its face, and then put it in a display. And instead of displaying like, look what we just made in our, weekend craft show, they literally claim that to be what they say it is. This is one of the links. Like, we used to be that and evolved into what we are now. Except for all the they don't ever provide the counter argument to it, scientific or not. So right next to that, what I would put is the fruit fly experiment that they conducted. They wanted to study evolution, so fruit fly is a perfect example because there's a new generation every week.
Right.
Because their life cycle's so short. So they said, this is perfect. We can make these fruit flies evolve.
Right.
If evolution's real, right? So they, by the end of and I think it's still ongoing, I'm not sure about that, but at the end, they had been now at 11 million generations of fruit flies. And guess what? It's still just a damn fruit fly.
Right.
What was the conclusion of the experiment? Why did the answer that they offered, why this is, they threw everything at these fruit flies and could not get them to change a bit. Like the last fruit fly was exactly the same as the first one 11 million generations later. Their conclusion, the scientific conclusion was, well, fruit flies are immune to evolution. My 3-year-old is smarter
Well, a
than
lot of mathematicians adopt creation because they start to calculate the probabilities of evolution. And we now have more information than we had 100 years ago. We know that the simple cell was never simple. Inside that cell is a miniature factory, a factory that duplicates itself, that shares information, that comes stocked with blueprints, with copying, with marshalling of orders, information. Now, information never has been random. If so, then why do we need Bill Gates? A program like Microsoft Word should accidentally, through typos, have created itself. Certainly with all the people and the size of the sampling pool here, mutation does not make things better.
right.
Like if you're just delivered your baby and the doctor comes out and says, ooh, there's a genetic mutation. You're not thinking, oh, he's going to be advanced.
Yeah,
He's going to be even better than the last.
I just had Wolverine.
No, guess what?
No.
Computer malfunction. Your computer shuts down. Your kid's on life support for the rest of his life. Your kid only lives a week. That's what the truth of mutation is. Why doesn't any of the 7 or 8 billion inhabitants of Earth have a working third arm?
Yeah, or gills.
Or wings?
Or wings, or... Yeah.
If the theory's true, embedded somewhere in our DNA is a recessed trait. We all were birds at one point. We all came from reptiles at one point. We all came from a single cell. Someone should be born with these things somewhere. Even if the recession is a 1 in a billion chance, it means there should be 7 people that have a set of wings today. But there's not.
No, there's not. And guess what? It's not going to be.
Maybe we're like the fruit flies.
Yeah. We're immune now.
We're immune to evolution because they're putting fluoride in our water.
We got to where we're supposed to be, and now we're done evolving.
Right. Well, the fluoride stopped us.
The fluoride stopped it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's much easier to
It
make
says,
changes nowadays.
on the fruit fly thing. Just to close that, they've been testing them for 100 years,
Oh, it's gone on that long?
and it has involved 3,000 consecutive generations.
That's been going on as long as the Russian investigation, hasn't it?
Just about
I
as
think
long.
Maxine Waters said that they just haven't got it yet.
And
gotta keep
they have concluded that there is no basis for believing that any natural or artificial process can cause an increase in complexity and viability. No clear genetic provement has ever been observed in any form of life, despite the many unnatural efforts to increase the mutation rates.
Right. Fruit flies are just fruit flies.
Ginger just asked about tailbones. You're asking, like, what about people that have, like, an extra tailbone? potentially, maybe that's a mutation. Now,
Well,
that's
it
a
is.
mutation
People
that's
are-
not life. I know people that only have 3 fingers. I know
Yeah.
some that have 6.
Some people are born with no arms.
Some people are born with one eye. I've seen people born with a second set of teeth.
Yeah, parasitic twins. I mean,
Those are mutations, yes. But they don't advance the species as far as I know. And it's what I'd call a safe mutation. It's somewhat harmless.
Well, and
I
it's
mean,
a one-off usually.
Well, usually
If those people have kids, their kids don't necessarily have that
not
mutation.
necessarily. And if you are born with a tail, usually you get it cut off because it's not improving your. You don't instantly become a spider monkey.
But who are people actually born? I mean, I've heard of the extra,
yeah, people
coccyx-
are born with extra. It's like
a couple extra vertebrae.
right. It looks like a tail.
But I've never seen someone born like with a freaking, a tail that can swing
No, like
around.
like I said, otherwise, then you would keep it. Because if you were like
'Cause
born
you'd be a
with
hit
s-
at parties
Dude,
for
are you
sure.
kidding me? Yeah. I mean, if you were all born
hey,
like
babe,
a
I've got
spider
2
monkey.
Cossacks.
Yeah,
right.
see? Huh? Yup. Yeah, you wouldn't remove that. You'd keep that. At least I would.
Yeah, me too.
It's much easier nowadays to have this, not
No.
mutations, but it's the evolution. And that's actually, they're actually doing that now.
What's that?
What do you mean?
Well, you turn an Olympic champion into a woman with a wig and some silicone.
Yeah, that's not evolution.
Oh, it's not?
Oh, no.
Oh, you guys are haters.
That's fluidity.
You guys are
Yeah,
haters.
That's
Hey,
gender
we're just
fluidity.
haters. We're haters.
It's called an
I can't be on the show
abomination,
anymore,
if
you
you
guys.
ask me.
I'm sorry, I have to go to the conference
handle.
on homophobic xenophobes.
Yeah, can't handle the
I'm
hate
surrounded
speech.
by a bunch of racists,
Yeah.
gender.
You are.
Apparently
You
so.
are.
Yeah.
I told these guys earlier I got
Why don't you guys
basically called a
evolve little
racist.
bit? Yeah,
Because you're racist.
why were you called a racist? What was the...
What was the basis for this?
You know, it comes down to, it's Facebook, stupid Facebook
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I got a
nonsense.
Facebook fight today too. It was good.
Oh, by the way, anyone that's on Facebook is a racist. I just wanted to get that out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
before you get started.
I'm gonna go
Well, unless you're calling someone a racist, and then you're not.
Then you're not.
Yeah.
you point out that regardless,
Or is
you've
it
got
if
these
you're
people
gay?
where you try to say, now look, I don't know if Trump, we've said this in the show, I don't know if Trump is a good guy or bad guy. I'd like to be the first one to know what his ties are, right?
Sure.
Because I don't trust any of them,
Right.
to be honest with you. I don't trust
Right.
any of them.
Nor should you.
So, you get these things coming back that, what happened between Bush and Obama? Very clear. Obama was a traitor. Bush is a traitor based on this,
Yeah.
this, and this. Matter of fact, Clinton 1, Clinton 2, Bush 1, Bush 2, all of these people, right? And these are all the reasons. And I could go over it 100 times. You still got people coming back. What about this?
Yeah.
What
And
about
you
this?
will.
Trump. And it's like, now look. And what started off was somebody commented every time, and they'd always say, "Oh, he's an a-hole." Trump. They're talking about Trump. He just cussing. That's like, really, have a point.
Yeah,
It's just-
that may be
You don't
true.
have to have a point.
he
anymore.
might be,
Yeah,
but
he probably
give
is.
a reason. Give a reason. If you don't like it, because that's propaganda, right? That's basically what that is. You're using those words because this lady is apparently a U of M grad,
Oh, well, then
Oh,
you can't
Phi
argue
Beta
with her.
Kappa, a Mensa society.
Yeah, she's
blah, blah,
got-
blah.
yeah, she's
Former
smart.
she
Former-
sounds smart.
Yeah.
Former Chicago elementary teacher.
Oh, from Chicago and
Right?
a U of M degree. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
So all this stuff is
These
it's
people
coming
don't
down.
grow on trees.
Oh,
you
is she
know.
writing a book?
Wow, that's crazy.
But everything that she says is just cursing out Trump.
She
You
got
know?
a wife, right?
I don't know. I really don't care. I don't want to get into her. I was like, hey, just have a point, right?
You don't have to have a point anymore. That's the beauty of living in the
but
left.
the point is, it all goes back to, okay, even though I have never, they've never found anything on my post that's racist, or even close to it.
you don't
nothing
agree
I've
with
done
them,
in real
so you're
life.
racist.
Any of this stuff. But get this, Howard. If you voted for Trump, you probably are, and you don't know it. You're behind.
Right,
It's behind
exactly.
the scenes. When other people are not
Exactly.
around, this is how you are.
Right.
What's funny about
Yeah,
that?
fruit flies don't evolve.
Well, here's what's funny about that is here's somebody who obviously resides on the left, right? That may be an unfair judgment on my part, but I think it's probably accurate.
Nailed it.
But what's interesting about that, to me anyway, is they're always the ones throwing out that you're probably a racist, racism's in your DNA, this kind of crap, are the same very people that make the claim publicly, by the way, that the, and I hate using these terms because they're cliche, but this is their words, so the black community, the Hispanic community, on and on and on, can't possibly succeed without government intervention. Because that is what they're claiming. So who's the friggin' racist?
They're putting themselves in chains, right?
Well, who's the racist?
Well, no,
Well, that is.
that
Well,
I think
mean,
more often than
they're
not
so
is
they're so deluded they don't even see.
Well, they are racist if they think that.
Hello,
Right. But no, you see, you voted for Trump, so
that all bets
that
are off.
makes you a
Doesn't matter.
racist.
Yeah, and it doesn't, because you only voted for Trump for one reason. There is no other reason. That's what the
Well,
propaganda
it's,
is out there,
it's
right?
probably more because
Yeah.
you hate women.
And
Well, that
I'm
too.
pissed off. There's
Yeah.
no wall up, and he hasn't got all the darkies out of the country yet. I mean, what's up? I voted for him.
That's what it's about, right?
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, well.
Oh, and everybody. Wait, what's xenophobic?
listeners-
Everybody from the outside and the gays.
you
And
guys
you really want to
understand that this is
Sarcasm.
total sarcasm.
Totally
So-
sarcasm.
Disclaimer.
And what is the other funny thing is, and you guys will, I'm sure, appreciate this, is that if you were to say something like I'd like to post on there, okay, because it's all about you're a white man, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, we can't
And
say
the white
anything.
man
'cause
is
we're
white
dudes.
man is the problem. I said,
Oh,
well,
we're the problem. Yep.
Yeah, I must have missed the meeting.
Yeah, white privilege.
I haven't been there.
You didn't get
You
the
got to
white
speak
privilege.
her language. Sigmund Freud would say you're trying to repress your own racist feelings by accusing others of being the
Yeah.
very thing you are.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
Well,
what they're doing.
That's
And
what they do.
That's logical, right? You point out to somebody.
Logic's
Look,
gone.
I'm not a racist.
We've evolved.
You're a racist. But anyway, if you say that, you go, what I'd like to say is, if the devil is white, right, I guess the white man is the problem. Because people don't realize they're being used. When you break it all down,
I know, and that's the point I want to get across.
There's
'cause
only two people. There's good and bad, right?
That's what I'm saying. But they throw in all these distractions. I got in an argument on someone else's Facebook post who's a friend of mine because she's a relation. And she posted this the video of the spoiled brats standing up and walking out on Mike Pence as he began his
At Notre Dame?
his Notre Dame commencement speech. Okay, and she writes these students are being future leaders by refusing to be mindless sheep and forced to just sit there. Life is too damn short. We should all be taking notes from these brave individuals. Don't hate because they realize their time is more important than wasting it on something or someone they don't really care to listen to.
So why'd they go?
Okay, so how many idiotic statements did she make in one paragraph? So, of course, I snapped.
Yeah.
No matter how busy I was, I had to retort. And my reply was, future leaders whose time is more important than wasting it on someone with opinions that differ from theirs. What a bright future to look forward to. Being unwilling to consider a viewpoint opposed to your own is exactly the opposite of leadership. They would have actually shown bravery by politely listening to the speech and choosing to maintain their beliefs when, if put to question. Walking out ensured that their opinions remain unchallenged. Isolating yourself from anyone who may disagree with you is just as mindless. You're just following a different shepherd. Okay?
Well put, Howard.
And then
I like
she
it.
loses her mind.
Of course she
Yeah,
does.
because that's what people do when
and
they're
starts
wrong.
and starts just
Basic
posting one sentence replies because obviously she thinks of something else after she rushes to hit the return button. So she's like, "Would you say the same thing for Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement?" You also realize that we're all adults and could do whatever we want. It's called free will. They didn't stop Pence from giving a speech. They just chose to do it. Would you also say the same thing if the speaker was Obama or Hillary? If the answer is no, then your issue is that they don't agree with your views.
What does that mean, though? If you
Hang on, I'm getting there. And then the last one was, by the way, walking out publicly, their views and opinions are being challenged. No. Case in point, these Facebook threads. Okay? So, and then she posts a video, and then she posts an article by a lesbian feminist to support her point of view.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I retorted real quick. I'm like, absolutely, I would, wouldn't you? The only way anyone can be as close to positive that their opinions are correct is by constantly reevaluating them. If you choose to simply ignore alternative viewpoints, you're not reinforcing your own. You're simply creating a safe space in which your opinion is never challenged. Not the same in the least. How can you even associate MLK with Hillary and Obama? And why would those be the names you choose to represent people whom you think I might not want to listen to? If my skin were thinner, I might be offended.
Yeah.
And then
you guys really think society's got 40 years left in them?
No.
I don't.
No, dude, I
don't.
I'm convinced this is extremely close. Like I said outside, the only place to go from it, because you can't change your minds, you can't can't use logic or reason or anything.
It's steel cage match.
The only thing it can come down to is violence.
That's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
And so we're about to
that's what
take a
they
break.
want.
That's what they're pushing.
But let's talk about how close we are to that, because Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia
Oh, boy.
was very biblical.
I'm glad you brought
And we'll
that
get
up.
back. We'll get back to that in a minute.
Okie doke. Well, we will be right back if Kenny decides to play a few commercials. Welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. We're just talking about all kinds of things in general, the differences between one side and the other. Yeah, I hate calling them the left and the right, but I don't know what else to call them. I mean, you can't really say good versus evil because that's politically incorrect, right?
Well, actually, it's not true because there's evil on both sides.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yes,
that's true.
Someone, it's in the book somewhere, but some theologian a long time ago said that Satan sends problems into the world in pairs. Now we're going to get to Trump and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
There are only 2 books that I know of in the world that claim to be from God.
Okay.
Do you guys know what these are?
The Quran and the Bible?
Right. So the Bible's quoted in this book. So's the Quran. And to change gears a little bit, is something up with that toilet back there? Because I
don't
can
know.
hear something. It sounds like a waterfall. Anyway.
We'll find out soon enough because it'll be out here before too long.
So a while ago, I was doing some... researching this thing has given me a chance to read the Quran. Good swaths of it. And mother...
While you're doing that,
Thank you.
Howard, you were talking about left and right. You know, this is all very irritating when you get down to it, because that's how they're separating everybody. You have to believe in this side or that side. Well, I think we all agree that both sides now are corrupt. You know, you could say, yeah, you have an ideology that I agree with either party, but the reality is they're both corrupt. They're both using
and it's
people.
crap. It's crap. We don't. Neither the left nor the right stands up for the values they claim to that they claim to uphold.
It's because it's corrupt.
Because it's corrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the left actually does. They don't lie about what they are or hide it.
Yeah, but they dress it up.
Well,
they dress it up. They pretend that they really care about minorities when they don't. They're just using the minorities to. They're using them like emotional words.
Well, it's a talking point for them. They don't really care.
No, but they pretend they do, and they make
Right.
these people believe that you do.
Sure.
That they do.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you mean they don't hide it? What aren't they?
Well, I mean, you have a good example is Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't hide the fact that he's a socialist. Actually,
yeah.
he's a commie. But
Socialism is communism.
But again, he doesn't hide it.
Right. I agree with that. Okay.
He doesn't hide it. And they don't hide their affiliations. They don't hide their connections. There's no veil over the fact that, like, Obama had connections to some pretty radical folks, including terrorists. But it doesn't seem to resonate.
That's interesting. You just made that comment because you'd say he had some ties to it, right? And I think our ties that we know are his ties to, like, CIA. Okay, his background in the CIA. So when you say, hey, he's got some ties to this and this and this,
Who are we talking about right now?
Barack Obama.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's rolling with he's
he's no
Reverend
doubt.
Wright,
Reverend Wright, all these
Bill
people.
Ayers. I mean, it's not a secret.
That's not a secret, but I would argue that he was doing it with the FBI, with the CIA. You know what I mean? That was part of his.
That
mission.
could be.
You know what I mean?
It could be, but I mean, you don't. I mean, you look at it on the surface. You don't sit in the pew of a church for that many years and not actually believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, so
No, and let me rephrase that by saying that's all tied into the same plan.
yeah. I mean,
you know
it
what
could
I mean?
be. I mean, you have Hillary Clinton's another example that people from Ku Klux Klan she claims are mentors, and nobody talks about
but
this.
Obama's sitting in a church. Isn't that just a ruse?
Well, not when it's
I mean-
Reverend Wright's church. That's not a ruse. He believes that.
And what's in Reverend Wright's
He's
church?
the GD America guy. So he's radical.
He's apparently a very radical,
he's
anti-American.
right. Yeah, it's the Christian version of Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
Right. So, and he's
But you would think by his policies and his actions that he was anything but a Christian. I mean, I would think that by his actions and his policies that he was actually a Muslim.
well, and it's arguable whether Reverend Wright is a Christian.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
But
by
it's just
sitting in that
fact
church,
of the fact, without trying to dissect it too far. The fact of the matter is that he has affiliations with people who are radical domestic terrorists, even the Weather Underground. These people, but it wasn't. It didn't keep him from being a senator. It didn't keep him from becoming president, right? So they don't hide it. I mean, they look at their agenda, their policy, their ideologies. I mean, everything from the left is to destroy freedom, destroy liberty, divide people, to conquer them, and all this pushing for what they call, civil rights. It's the biggest ruse ever. I mean, the fact that Democrats are out there talking about civil rights is a freaking joke. I mean, they were the force standing in the way of the civil rights movement back when it was up and coming. It was actually Republicans that pushed all that through. It was actually the first Republican president ever that abolished slavery. It's the party of Lincoln. This is not, the Republicans have been now, and I'm not a Republican, but they've been mislabeled as racist, elite, white guys. This is actually not true.
right? If you repeat a lie enough times,
That's right.
It's
actually not true. And they say the Democrat Party's changed. It hasn't. Like you said, is they've dressed it up, and so they're not just wearing white hoods like the DNC convention from 1924 or around that area. Look at images of that. That was actually the Democrat National Convention. It was a KKK rally.
Well, they spun that into saying that all those people switched sides and went to the Republicans. That's how they spin.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's
okay.
all spelled out with
yeah,
that.
Sure, of course
movie.
they did. Yeah, of course they did. So, but either way, Democrats were the party of slavery. They tried to block every effort to pass civil rights legislation, which we actually already have. It's called the Constitution, but who am I? But they don't hide it. They want big government, more overreach. They want government to pay for everything and steal the money to do it. They want taxes to go up. These people they don't hide this. There's nothing good about any of those things. They want to expand entitlements, expand welfare. At the same time, we got a $20 trillion overhang on our head. So they don't hide it. They don't hide it. But Republicans aren't much better these days. They're doing nothing. That's the thing, right? You can see it. They're doing nothing. And I haven't heard anyone talk about the debt. So,
well, they're not only doing nothing; they are part of that whole plan.
Well, I think it's like we've made this example before. It's like WWF, right? It's professional wrestling. On TV, these guys are at each other, and afterwards, like, oh, that was pretty good, high five, and they're having beers in the limousine. While they're going hanging out at their ritzy country clubs. These people are all connected. They're all hooked up. They're friends. This nonsense on TV, they're not really at each other. They don't even have a difference in ideas.
Well, see, that's what's funny when they start talking about all these investigations we want to do. We want to. Have you ever heard of an investigation that got to the bottom of anything?
No.
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 But yet it is so important that we have an investigation about this, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And then they fight back and forth on it. And then what ends up happening is these guys obstructed us. These people did this. It's exactly what you said. That WWF mentality is so apparent that I cannot believe that people don't see it. That's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And it's the shame is you see it. It's polarized people so bad that you can't even meet in the middle anymore.
Mm-hmm. No.
It's either this or that. And in fact, I would claim that most of life is a gray area. It's either this or that. There's no. Well, how about we do what they did when they founded this nation and try to meet in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even do this anymore.
No, not only do they not do that, but like we've talked about, they attach a negative about you personally,
right?
For even thinking.
Oh, well, it's character assassination,
that's
right?
Correct.
And that's that. Of course, no.
There's no way back from that.
Well, you ask him why can't we just meet in the middle? Well, because I could never meet in the middle with someone like you because you won't meet me in the middle. I'm standing here in the middle with my arms open and asking you to come to the middle, and you're standing way back there on the other side of the fence going, I can't meet with you because you won't meet with me.
Right.
But I'm standing here.
Right.
And what else?
Well, they moved the middle.
They've
redefined the middle. They've redefined the line. So now if you talk about, say, the Constitution, you're a right-winger.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the Constitution is the moderate position. That is the center. That nut center, actually.
Right.
But that's been labeled now as I heard
Times changed.
Well, I heard Charles Krauthammer, and I didn't actually watch it because I don't watch that crap anymore, but make a comment that he called Rand Paul, who should be the president, in my opinion, Rand Paul a radical fundamentalist.
That's radical.
Wow. Really? Oh, wow. So he's talking about the founding documents that is the backbone of our system, but that makes him a radical fundamentalist. Not just a a radical. Really, that's interesting to me. And here, this guy is on TV, claims to be from the conservative, point of view-ish, and he says some crap like that. And people take him seriously. Rand Paul, in my opinion, is probably one of the very few statesmen we have left on the planet.
He's a threat to them.
Of course, because he's way smarter.
He's a bigger threat to the perceived right than to the perceived left.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Because he exposes it all as bullshit.
That's right. And he's
not part of that. He's not part of the club.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he's definitely not part of the club. He's Ron Paul's kid. He can't be part of the club.
This is where I'm saying
he's forbidden.
This is the time where you start jotting down who's who.
Right.
Okay. Who's on what team? Ben Sass, I think, is the one senator's, out John right now. John McCain, Romney.
McCain.
You talk about all these different people, and this is something that
what a pathetic
the
old
left.
Fool.
Okay, and both sides do this. Okay.
Yeah.
The right pull up, hey, Joe Lieberman says this, and the left pulls up, well, John McCain says it. Well, they're both a-holes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're both shills. Okay, and this is what they're using. It's like, okay, check mark for this guy, because you're going to need to know who's on what team.
Yeah, and there's only a few. I mean, from what I can tell anyway, there's only a few solid politicians there. A few. I mean, like 3 or 4. I mean, there's they're outnumbered.
Yeah.
Even though the Republicans, quote unquote Republicans. But they're actually, capital R Republicans, not little r Republicans. Big difference. They control all 3 branches of government now.
And they're still getting nothing done.
That's because, what are they going to do? They don't.
Right.
They love big government too.
Right.
They depend on it.
Right.
But they only like it if they're in charge of it. You see, it's the same is true for the left. They only like it when they're in charge of it. I mean, people on the left love police states. This is what they love. They love these dictator types. They love this stuff. They love it. But because they've never lived under it. On paper, it sounds awesome, right? It sounds awesome. But really look at what it produces, and you'll see it's not awesome. There's nothing awesome about it. I don't know.
Unless you're the dictator, right?
Unless, of course, you're the one in charge of the police state, and then you don't live under the policies that you implement.
Right, you live
that
outside of that
is a lot like what we have going on here. It's very easy for these people to get on television and go on to these hearings and talk about this healthcare stuff when they don't even have to live under it.
Yep.
So what do you really think they're going to wait in line with us and be told,
No.
9 months you can have your MRI? Are you kidding me? They're not. They don't have to live under this.
No, that's
These same rules.
That's kind of what I was talking about.
So it's easy for
when we
them.
were talking about the two different people, two different. You have the people that are, and I hate to say it, slavery is a bad word. It's because everyone assumes it means something. Okay, but we're all slaves. All of us who are not the political ruling elite are slaves.
Yeah,
okay?
it's because it just became more sophisticated.
Yeah, and it's moving on. It's changing. It's manipulating, and it's still slavery, realistically. But you don't see it as that. It's like hey, we're going to throw you guys this, and your income can go up a little bit, and you can buy a few more things. We're going to import some stuff, and
right.
You guys are going to have a good life, and just trust us. We'll handle it for you. Right. This is what actually goes on in the world.
Right, and they act like they're the the charitable ones when the things that I'm talking about government, the things they do is always at the end of it is done at the end of a gun.
Yeah,
because the only thing the government can do is exert force.
Well, it always changes because when people start to see it, they have to control it, right?
Yeah.
So when and that's where you have these violent outbreaks, which is. A lot of people are predicting this is where this is going.
There's no other place it can go.
Right.
I mean,
there's
we have lost our grasp of reason in this country.
Yeah.
And it's not only this country, though. It's worldwide. It's already going on worldwide.
Well, Europe
I mean,
is
it was. I think it was going on worldwide before it was going on here.
Well,
I like to believe that even as messed up as we are, that we're the last foothold of sanity.
No, you're right about that because look at Europe.
Yeah.
Europe is literally committing suicide.
Oh yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. It's unrecognizable, and it's about to get worse. And you're right. It's pushing everything to where only violence is the answer. When you really look at the difference in intellect from now to back before electricity, it's gone down exponentially. People used to have intelligent debate, and they treated each other with respect, even if they were opposite opinions. You read those
individualism and curiosity used to be commended and nurtured.
Well, you read
now we're raising kids, and the only thing we're teaching them is how to score high on the test.
Well, and hate the one that doesn't agree with you, and then if they show up to talk, it's okay to break out store windows because it's your right. It's nonsense. When you read through some of the old debates. The best ones are during the ratification of the Constitution. These debates that went on, these people were sometimes total polar opposites. You would have a big central government guy talking to an total, Republican type, little R Republican, not political Republican, but individual liberty, freedom guy, small government, limited, the whole thing. And they totally hate each other. They hate each other. They can't stand each other.
Right.
I mean, visceral hate. I mean, they don't even agree with anything each other has to say, but yet when they addressed each other, it was done with respect. It was always like, I will address my honorable, the honorable so-and-so, and respectfully ask that the way they talked with each other, it was civil.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't even...
Well, why? Why? Because those people believed so much in their convictions that they were willing to die for them.
Well, that and
so there was the threat. There was the threat that they may have to defend the words that come out of their mouth. That's why there was respect. Because today there's no accountability. We can say anything we want and we get away with it.
Well, and I think it was respect just for the sake of respect. There was another intelligent person next to you, whether you agree or not. You have respect for that person because remember the little thing, love your neighbor like you love yourself kind of thing.
Well, yeah, but that was
it
in the
meant
Bible,
something-
and we've completely removed that
Again.
from our society.
Right. That is what those
That's
people
a big
leaned
point.
on. You know.
Society frowned on all that before. Okay, now it's wide open.
Yeah.
You know, if you said something disrespectful, people took offense to it, not just the person you're talking to. That was my whole point on this Facebook thing we were talking about. Is that it's not the cursing, it's the disrespect. You're not only disrespecting that person, you're disrespecting the person that supports that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And these people get behind keyboards, and it gets and you know how it goes. You've seen this Facebook stuff going on. It's very very difficult to not go off the handle. And,
And a lot of times
I've
it's-
found that I can make people far more angry by remaining calm and just making my point.
Yeah.
now.
And really,
which is why I do.
their
Because
whole,
I want to just I just want to hit caps lock
Yeah, but their whole
and start
point-
swearing.
Their whole point is to make you angry so that you respond. In
No, I don't
anger.
even think they're that smart anymore. I mean, obviously, the one that we were just talking about, she was baiting me to try and see if she could make me angry and start throwing some stuff back at her. But they're not angry to start with. They're just completely delusional.
Yeah, I mean,
thing
They
is,
have
when you-
convinced themselves. It's like both of us, both Tony and I mentioned in our comments regarding Facebook. These people, they refuse to consider anyone's opinion. They've locked themselves in their house with their computer. And they believe, could I be wrong about this? No, you can't be wrong about this. Okay, yeah, I'm right. I know this.
yeah.
And there's nobody that is coming up and challenging their opinions.
Well, like a good example was that what that person said to him. She probably watched an MSNBC special
Yeah.
where some psychologist broke it down for everybody that if you voted for Trump, somehow you're
Yeah.
a racist.
Yeah.
And that is just a fact now in that woman's
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
As smart as that person might be, they're really an idiot because really you think that, and this is the mentality of the left, unfortunately, is it's always broad brushstrokes. So whenever they say insert ethnicity here and then followed up by community, they're actually the racist. There is no anything community. That's nonsense.
well, they've been
It's really just this is just the United. You're just American. So to separate all these groups and make it seem like there's like a specific zip code that everyone or whatever. I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, that alone is evil.
And these people, it's interesting in the study that I read a while back when you're talking about, and I think they might have mentioned the liberal perspective, or the things that are going on right now in society. It's really a mental issue, okay? And the thing that they're saying is, if you don't apologize to these, well, first of all, if you bend at all, they just get more and more. It's like a vicious dog. A vicious dog comes up to you and you go at it and you start,
Right, they see it as a sign of weakness.
Right,
Not
they see it as a sign of
not
weakness.
as a sign of the willingness to compromise for the greater good. It's a sign of weakness.
It's a sign of right. That's right. It's a sign of weakness, and then they start even more on the attack. And that's a lot of people say about what's going on in Washington right now because Trump is trying to work with both sides, and they see the blood in the water and they go after it. Okay, that's literally it looks like what's actually happening when you watch it. So I kind of understand it. But they said that if you don't apologize to these people, that they just go out of their mind.
No, yeah, they'll
Just like
lose
you
it.
said, They lose their mind and they're just will not let go
Because they didn't get an apology.
because they didn't get an apology, and you now are their enemy, and they literally want to hurt you.
Yeah. I get one way to get upset at me because she wouldn't accept my apology. I said, I'm sorry. You're wrong. I apologize. Didn't make her right, but she still was upset.
Yeah, it wasn't good enough apology.
Yeah. And
So-
I am sorry she's wrong. I'm sorry for her.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we're
too
not
bad
always
she's
right.
a moron.
I think Dave's got his.
Did you find your thing yet, dude? It's been like
Yeah,
a month.
we're waiting for.
Oh yeah, no, I was just listening.
Oh.
I'm not a fan of the political. Every station in America does it. I like to stay out of it. That's why I don't really go to Facebook because I get drawn in, and it just sucks energy, and it's a diversion from like the main goal. of
Well,
what
I think all of us at the table are a little bit different. We're not political pundits. We're not into politics, other than pointing out that there is a ruling class over you, and they are lying to you, and they are manipulating you.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's absolutely true.
And I think a little bit different.
Yeah,
Everyone's got their little points,
my
but-
only political aspiration is to try and figure out how to bridge the gap that I see getting wider and wider and wider between.
And you can't wake these people up.
No, exactly.
Well, unfortunately, the pattern has to repeat itself for them to learn. So you have to become Cuba. You have to become the Soviet Union.
Yeah, but
You have to become Venezuela.
is if they end up turning the United States into Cuba or Venezuela or Russia, I'm here too.
No, but what I'm saying,
that's my issue.
right. That's exactly right. But they won't learn unless they actually.
Can I just send
see
them to
this
Venezuela or Russia?
There's some weird mind block that they think it's different because it's here, and we're somehow smarter and can do it better. I don't know.
It's called American exceptionalism. Like we're special.
And
yeah,
why,
but that
and
doesn't
why
mean
are
we're
we
going to
special?
be better at communism.
It's all a moot point.
But
because
they choose to ignore the reason why the United States was special.
Right.
No, this country. It's still functioning, but it's toast.
No,
I mean,
it's
we're in
bankrupted.
We've gone from bondage to. There's a 8-point cycle of nations. We're in the last cycle. The apathy. The what are the characteristics of the final stage?
I don't remember. That came from a Scottish lawyer.
It's actually in the book somewhere.
Yeah, some Scottish
I'm not
lawyer
gonna
said
look
that.
for
And he's
it,
actually spot on right about it.
Yeah, we're in the apathy.
Yeah.
And
then
the last stage is we go back into slavery.
Right.
Bondage. Yeah.
And we are we're about to become real slaves again.
For sure.
Yeah, but
real.
people don't really understand that. But if you break that down, okay, this is how I would break it down. I'd like to hear how you guys would break it down. Is that going back to bondage is going to be because of a financial collapse, civil war, whatever. There's going to be a breakdown in this government, in the people. There's going to be a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of death and misery, right? And then someone's going to come in and
that's
become your master.
It'll always end
it's
up
called the Antichrist.
backed into a dictatorship, no matter what. If
but people think this is crazy. Well, it's not going to become what's wrong?
Yes, it will. Actually,
I agree.
Yeah, it will actually. In fact, it was known a long, long time ago. That's what will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So, and it was warned against over and over again that is why, I harp on it all the time, but it's very important because of the position and the place those guys were coming from was one of, I think, guided by.
You talk about the founding.
That's
fathers.
right. Yeah. Because they knew what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They lived it, and they knew. History showed them. I mean, they know you can't. This thing needs to be limited and controlled, even if it's not comfortable or it's not. At the time, it seems like it's kind of struggling. Maybe government could help. No, they won't help. They might help for a minute, but it turns into a maniacal, monolithic, this monster that you can't even. Now it has a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. I would argue it's not stoppable at this point because it will fight for survival just like we do.
What's not stoppable?
This government is not stoppable by us. We can't stop it. It's too big. It's too big. It's not fixable.
It's actually more of it's an imperial invader.
We are so far past being a constitutional republic anymore that the fact that they even talk about the Constitution makes me laugh because it's just a matter of convenience for these folks now.
And it's actually not just a sheet of paper, and the laws on it are broken constantly by the legislators of our country.
And they only adhere to it when it's convenient. Mm-hmm. Right?
Here's the quote I think you guys were looking for. Now, this has been attributed to a lot of folks. Here again, this is one of those quotes that someone copied and pasted a bunch of stuff, and it's been effed up. It's been given credit to a guy named Alexander Tytler, not Tyler. So that's a mistake within a mistake. Benjamin Disraeli, Arnold Toynbee, Ezra Taft Benson. But this was said by a guy named Henning Webb Prentice, who of all things was the president of the Armstrong Cork Company. This was part of one of his speeches. He gave variations of this thing all over the place. And it had some different variations, but here's the one that's going to appear in the book. And the quote is, "The historical cycle seems to be from bondage to spiritual faith. Our founding fathers got us there.
Yeah.
And this country was founded with a spiritual faith in God and Jesus Christ to get started."
Agreed, yeah.
Correct.
Next stage. From spiritual faith to courage. We stood up against the mother lion, the British, the Tarshish, if you will, and we beat them. That took a lot of courage. I mean, think of what Washington went through in Virginia. I want to say Virginia when he's got his armies in tatters. It took a lot of courage to stand up to the British invaders. From courage to liberty.
Yeah.
That we essentially achieved. Now we're moving into
abundance.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the presidents that would have earmarked this. This is now post-Jackson. We're in...
I would say abundance came after World War II, wouldn't you say?
We're not there yet. From liberty to abundance, and I think that definitely happened. Well, that probably started in the late 1800s.
Industrial Revolution.
That would have been Lincoln, Tyler, Taft,
Wilson,
McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, up through Franklin, and even up still. There's parts of that still today, although not like it is, because now our national debt is so great that everyone in this room owes $60,000 to the Rothschild family.
Yeah, we're broke.
Right. So from liberty to abundance. From abundance to selfishness. Now, this is starting to sound more like the America of today.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
From selfishness to apathy, which sounds a lot like a lot of people that I look around and see in this world.
Did you skip complacency, by the way?
Well, there are different variations of this. He has, there are 2 extra stages, and I think it was from apathy to complacency.
I would say.
Regardless, this is the one I decided to quote because this was the first speech he gave, which was in 1943-ish, I believe. So from selfishness to apathy. Now we're there because we're lazy. We don't we don't do the work. We don't think. We hog up our time with mindless crap.
Yeah.
From apathy to dependency. Because now
that's where we're at.
We're there. I mean, it's not. These aren't clean demarcation lines. It's a moving amoeba through. So there's factions of the world of this country that are in the last 3 or 4 stages, but you're starting to see this uprise of we need guys like Bernie Sanders to save us. We need to depend on the government to save. Of course, the government must first take from us before it can redistribute to us.
Right.
But that dependency is another word for socialism or communism.
Yeah, you've become dependent on it. Can't possibly shut the government down. Look, every 6 months we're having debates about this.
Exactly.
And we're full on somewhere in the selfishness to apathy, apathy to dependency, and then the last stage is from dependency back to bondage.
Yeah,
because once we're dependent on that government, we're
slave.
So the example we walked through about the financial example, if I wanted to take over the world and I laid it out, it would take 60 years. Well, that really began in the United States in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act. And now what happens is all of our tax dollars as an American goes to the Internal Revenue Service, which is a private collection agency for essentially the Rothschild family. And the interest now on the money that they've put into circulation is so great that all our tax dollars do is pay old interest. And the only reason this government is afloat is because they decide to continue loaning it money. But there will be the day of reckoning coming when they just, by design, they are not going to fund this government anymore. Because what happens now, we send in the tax revenue for the year. They collect it because that was a part of the deal they cut. Thanks, Congress, 1913, for losing the Revolutionary War. Right now, they're keeping us afloat because we're serving a purpose for them. Military power and technology and some of the elements of this coming deception are housed within the walls of the United States. They can't. They're going to need to keep us propped up for a while. But we see it popping up every now and then when the government says, we're not going to borrow any more money. What are we looking at? A government shutdown. And that this is exactly what will happen when that day comes. Because there's going to be a day where suddenly the Rothschild banking consortium says, we're not going to loan you the $1 trillion you need to make ends meet. We'll throw $500 billion at you. It could be a slow death. It could be overnight, too. Now, the news, which they own, will portray it as, we've screwed ourselves. No, they did this to us. And we let it happen, though, because we're stupid as a populace. And this was actually talked about in the Bible. They're going to do it in a way that first they're going to let things get effing terrible. Terrible. I mean, we're going to be scavenging for food. All economic and business systems will cease working. We used to be an agrarian country, and now 3% of our population provides food for the other 97%. Now, what do you think? And that 3% are using trucks, they're using modern equipment, they're using the internet to make all of it work. Now, when all that shuts down, they're going to be the only ones that can feed themselves. The other 97% are going to start killing each other for food and for water. And this was all predicted biblically. We're 1 inch away from this happening. I mean, it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened yet because I think the other parts of their plan aren't in place, or perhaps God's veil of protection is still at work. But we know, because this book, which has predicted everything that's ever happened, has never been wrong. It's going to happen. What Trump did this week, and we're going to get to that in a second, is actually just a ridiculous last piece of the puzzle with something that was also predicted in Ezekiel. I don't know if you guys saw that video we put up on Ezekiel 38 and 39 on YouTube. It was our May 11th show with Chuck Missler.
You put it on Facebook.
Did I? Yeah. I sent you guys. I thought I sent you guys an email.
I saw the email, but I haven't looked at it.
You guys got to check it because this, written in roughly 600 BC, frankly, is talking about a nuclear war.
I know which one you're talking
breaking
about.
out in the world, and little details about it, like people aren't going to be able to just pick up the remnants of this massive battle. They're going to need to put little markers by it after a 7-month waiting period. And then specialists can come in and properly dispose of this material downwind. I mean, we're talking about radiation cleanup here. And the coastland, the young lions of Tarshish, which are also known as the coastland countries. Well, England is the English Isles, and England is known even today as a lion. I mean, that is you see it on all of their... And who are the young lions? It's Australia. It's the United States. Yeah. It's New Zealand. It is all these
South
island
Africa. It's all those.
Now, and all these places are going to get fried. And I believe it now fully because God said it was going to happen. And that's where I am today with this is now having faith in things that haven't happened. And so all this talk about left and right, and it's almost things won't. They're just sorry, folks. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. We cannot fix this problem anymore.
Right.
And that's frankly why God said He will be intervening for the second time in the history of humanity in a massive way, because we are about to blow ourselves up like we were on the verge of doing in the days of Noah, where Satan literally got down to 8 people.
Yeah.
He had this world conquered, was 8 human beings away. But that bloodline was still untouched, uncorrupted. God puts them in a safety box. They get to planet repopulated. And I've often wondered, what motivates Satan? Maybe he thinks he can actually pull it off this time.
Sure.
And the number of attacks that are coming our way, not just financial, but read Revelation, read Daniel, read Ezekiel. We've got creatures coming out of pits. We've got little flying monsters which are starting to pop up all over the world. CERN's breaking open the gates to this, literally, I believe, the dimensions of hell. We're going to be flooded with demons. We're exhibiting all the signs. We're losing our love. And so how does Trump play into this? So Ezekiel 38 and 39 is a prophecy for the Gog and Magog war. You guys familiar with this?
A little bit, yep.
Okay. Now, they're mentioning terms and they're like Meshach, Gog, Magog, Togarmah, Sheba, Dedan, Cush, Put. What does all this mean? Well, these are all names of the children of children beginning with Noah. Noah has 3 kids, Ham, Shem, Japheth, and their children basically form their little tribes and they start to migrate out. And ultimately they repopulated the world. And because national borders are changing, perhaps this is why God identifies the geographic locations of who's going to be behind what attack in what he called the latter days. And unbelievably, in this book, Ezekiel, written in 600 BC, God says the Jews are going to lose their homeland, but in those latter days, I will bring them back. Now, that prediction right there is effing unbelievable, because that happened in 1948. And then the Israeli army retook Jerusalem in 1967, predicted in 600 BC. So then you start doing analysis on, well, who are all these? Who is Meshach and Tubal and Togarmah and Put and Cush? And let's just use modern country names. Israel is going to be attacked by Magog. Over Magog is what the Bible refers to as Gog. He's the head of Russia. That is what Magog is. It's what would be today the Soviet Union. And in alliance with him is going to be Persia, which that's Iran. There's going to be Turkey, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, Ethiopia, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria. We're talking the Muslim world.
Right.
Now, what's ironic is that there will be 2 tribes that will not be as a part of this attack, because they are going to be aligned with the young lions of Tarshish, which I personally believe is Great Britain and the English-speaking descendants of Great Britain, perhaps also including Japan. And these are basically the NATO alliance, our side of the
what
table.
we call the West.
Right. So it's unbelievable. This was written down 600. This was written down 2,600 years ago. And the countries that would come together against Israel would be led by the Soviet Union. Here are some of the predictions in Ezekiel 38 and 39. The Magog will be supplying all the weapons to all these countries. They will be supplying the arms. Now, they certainly do
They
that.
already do, yeah.
These nations also include what we would call the Eastern Bloc. Poland, East Germany, Ukraine, Belarus. You're getting the picture.
Okay.
Armenia. And they're all going to be coming up against Israel, except for a nation inhabited by 2 tribes, Sheba and Dedan. And what nation is that?
Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. It's the nation where the Tarshish young lion president, Donald Trump, was last week cutting an alliance with them.
Yeah, touching a glowing orb of some weirdness.
My point is, how the heck
So weird.
could... This is not an accident.
Right.
The 2,600 years ago, basically the Iron Curtain is discussed. The power of Russia, which was a nothing country up until really this century, is going to lead an attack against Israel. And all the pieces are in place. This odd outlier, Saudi Arabia, just this week declares its alliance, and now we understand why they're not going to be part of this attack.
Yeah.
It's going to engulf the whole world. 7 years, the battlefield will burn. Israel's going to end up winning, by the way. This is how God is going to prove to Israel that he is the God of Israel. He says it like 50 times. Israel will win. And he specifically says that Israel won't need energy from anywhere because they're going to be able to feed off the energy of the burning weapons of Gog and Magog and all of their underlings. And it's ironic that it stops at 7 years because there are other books that talk about the 7-year tribulation, which seems to go perfectly hand in hand with this. And when you read Ezekiel 38 and 39, and this is another place, they are really talking about modern technology. Now remember, the King James Version, which is what most of this is based on, is translated in 1611. We don't have missiles or we don't have ICBMs yet. So bow and arrow, I mean, that we're using language from the Greeks 2,000 years ago. But if you actually go to the original Greek, the word for arrow actually is a cylindrical shaft with a point at the end, which to a Greek transcriber doing the Septuagint, you could easily today describe that as missiles. Like this is going to be a worldwide nuclear. And these arrows, for some reason, they don't miss. They don't return. They all are completely accurate. And they cause a fire devastation that is so great that the battlefield cannot be even approached for 7 months. And when they do finally start to approach it, they don't dare touch anything on that battlefield. They leave a marker by it so specialists can come in to clean it up properly and put it downwind on the east side of the Dead Sea. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it goes so far as to describe radiation poisoning in Ezekiel.
Oh, because their eyes and I don't know if that was
tongue rots out of their mouth, and that's in my opinion.
It melts their eyes. It melts their tongue.
Yeah, no uncertain terms talking about
the buildings all over the world will be melted.
Yeah.
Mountains will disappear. This is nuclear. I mean,
right.
And we also know that all of this this isn't something that happened like 500 years ago, some Scythian battle of some sort. We know because in Ezekiel 39, like what are we talking about here? I can't even see. 39:25, he's saying all this is going to happen after Israel gets regathered. And the generation that sees that will see all of this. And that's another reason we don't have 40 years. We're down to a handful, by the way, folks. Yeah. And frankly, if you understand the chess game we're in, we are one move away from checkmate. But if you think we're playing checkers, you have no idea what's about to slap you upside your head. We have nothing to say that will help you in this physical life, because I know we're getting close to the end. We got 1 minute? Oh, the end of the show. But, yeah, the end.
Wait, that was quick. Wait.
Yeah, it's not 1 minute till, yeah.
The whole, no.
Yeah.
Well, it could. I mean, that's how close we are. At the end of the day, this isn't to scare you. It's not to, it's not to leave you with a feeling of hopelessness. It is to impress upon you that there is a creator God, and there is a much brighter future for those that believe in him and his son. It's simply by believing. And if you don't do that, if you do get trapped in this prison planet, it's your soul that you're messing with. But he's made it very clear that he's very real, and he's given warnings to anyone who is wise enough to look. And I think that's why we do this show, is to wake people up to this. So I got Kenny losing it over here. Is there anything you guys want to add?
That's it, man. That's enough.
Get good with Jesus Christ. Know who he is, what he did, and why he came here. because all of this is coming to a conclusion right now. The purpose of what he did 2,000 years ago is about to manifest itself. And you just don't have a lot of time to figure this out. It's as simple as that, folks. That's all I have to say for this week.
Okay, this has been Down the Rabbit Hole. See you next week.